So, both President Biden and former President Donald Trump are running for president again in 2024. I have some thoughts. I don't really have like a whole big list of things. Don't like have like bullet points. I just want to just give some quick talks on this one. So today is Friday, April 28th. On Tuesday, President Biden announced he was going to seek a second term as president. And pretty much since he lost the 2020 election, and yes, he has publicly announced on multiple occasions, despite all the lies that he said, Trump lost in 2020, and pretty much since he lost, he's been either running directly or indirectly for president again as well. So now we have both of them going to seek another term in 2024. And yeah, this is going to be mostly about Biden, but I will be going back to Trump a couple times. So I'm just going to start off with the main thing. I've said in a couple other videos that yes, I did vote for President Biden in 2020. And while I didn't like Hillary Clinton that much, I did vote for her in 2016. So I will say this. If it comes down between Trump and Biden in a rematch in 2024, I'm just going to say it right here, right now, I am going to vote for Biden again. Like, if there's any takeaway from this video, it's simply this. If it's going to come down between Biden and Trump, Biden's got my vote again, because I just do not want to see Trump be president again. But there are a lot of issues I have on both ends of this. I want to get the main thing out of the way first. If Biden gets reelected in 2024, he will be 86 years old when he leaves office. And I gotta be careful how I word this. Going back to something I said in a previous video, how opinions can change over time, but also things people said years ago can come back to bite them if they're not careful. I don't want to sound like I'm being prejudiced because of someone's age, or discriminating because of someone's age, but I will say this. Biden, I don't know if he could make it through another 4 years as President of the United States, either physically or mentally. Now, I do think overall Biden is in better physical shape than Donald Trump, but I don't think either of them are fully there mentally to survive another 4 years as president, whether it be Biden gets reelected or Trump gets reelected. Because I think Trump's about a year or two difference from Biden. I don't remember the exact age, but he's also about 80. So both of them will be in their 80s when they leave office. So, and then it begs the question, again, not to sound prejudiced, but could anyone who is in their 80s really be able to do the job successfully as President of the United States? I don't know. I'm only in my late 20s, but I've made this joke before about how my grandfather, well, my mom's stepdad, he's 83, and I've often joked I could not see him becoming president at 83 years old, and yet we're put in a situation where we might be re-electing one of these two men to be president again. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens, and some I'll get back to in a minute, but on the one hand, right now both men are in the lead, at least in early voting. Now, we're over 18 months out from the election, so anything could happen. But again, I'm just saying hypothetically, if it is Trump or Biden again, regardless which one it is, I do worry about both men's mental and physical health. As much as I don't like Biden, as like he wasn't anywhere in my top picks for the Democratic Party in 2020, and I've never supported Donald Trump. I don't want either man to die in office. I want to also get that out of the way. Despite issues I have with both men, I don't want either to die in office as president. But here's the other thing as well I also wanted to bring up. And I'll go back to this in a little more detail, but let's say between now and 2024 in terms of the election, because again, we got 18 months, what if something were to happen to either Biden or Trump? Now, take this however you want, but I'm meaning in two main ways, one for each guy. If something were to happen with Biden's physical and mental health, and he can no longer run for president in 2024, or will no longer be president, I should say, then Vice President Harris becomes president. Or if something happens with Donald Trump, with all the legal issues happening in New York, Washington, D.C., Georgia, I think also there's something in Florida now, and then if he's... Now, ironically, the Constitution doesn't say anything about a former felon being allowed, or a current felon being able to run for president, one of the weirdest oversights, but the question then comes, if neither Biden or Trump can run in 2024, well then who is going to be the people who run? Because if things stay as they are now, if Biden and Trump are currently the highest, I guess, polling initially for president, if neither of them are able to run for president, both parties, I think, are putting all their eggs, or at least most of their eggs, in the Biden and Trump rematch basket. But if something happens and neither of them can, I don't think either party's prepared for what will happen with 2024. Let's say, for whatever reason, Biden's not running for whatever reason, and then Trump's also not running for whatever reason. Who are the nominees? Well, like I said, we got VP Harris, but regardless of who the Republican nominee is, I've got my issues with Harris. Even before she was vice president, there were some issues with her as a DA, or yeah, I think it was district attorney, and then senator in California. Mainly things with like the prison labor, particularly for firefighters or prisoners who who fought wildfires, could not actually become firefighters. And then there's a couple other people. Marianne Williamson has put her hat in the ring to run for president again. Now, I don't know too much about Marianne Williamson as a politician because I think, again, she was like a self-help author and guru. She seems like a nice person. I've seen videos of her on TikTok and on YouTube. But I don't know if she'd necessarily be the most qualified person to be the Democrat nominee for president. But there really is no one else right now, when you think about it, that could, I guess, be Biden's successor if he can't run in 2024. I mean, you got a couple of cabinet secretaries that have some name recognition, like Pete Buttigieg or Anthony Blinken. But I don't necessarily know if any of them are ready for president again. I think I even did a video talking in the past about Buttigieg. Maybe best if he ran for Senate or governor of Indiana before trying to be president. And then there are a few names on the Republican side, going back to Trump, if he can't run. I mean, you got former VP Pence, but I don't think he has the nationwide support. You have someone like Nikki Haley or Asa Hutchinson, who are currently running. But, again, I don't think they have enough support nationwide just to be the nominee either. The only other big-name Republican might be Ron DeSantis, but there's a whole legal issue going on between him and Disney. And in the last year or so, he went from being the rising star of the Republican Party to one of the, I guess, most controversial figures of the Republican Party, even more so than Trump. Because all he talks about is culture war issues. He's got no real policy to talk about. Sure, he won by a huge landslide in Florida, but it's only because he ran against a Democrat who used to be a Republican. So it goes back to like this whole thing with Democrats. Why would voters vote for Republican light? They're just going to vote for Republican. So, sure, DeSantis had like a big, he had like a good start following his re-election, but things are just falling for him. So now there's a chance. He hasn't even announced he's running for president yet, and he may not be able to, like if he does, last very long. He could be like the Jeb Bush, but at least of the 2024 presidential election, but at least Jeb Bush was through a couple primaries before he withdrew. DeSantis might not even announce. So yeah, the reason why I bring this up is that, on the one hand, if it is a rematch between Biden and Trump, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm just an average Democratic voter. Sure, I have a lot of issues I'm progressive on, but there are a few I'm more moderate on. And Biden is a very moderate Democrat. I'm not going to act like, oh, he's like the next FDR. No, he's not. And anyone in the media who says he is just wrong. The only thing he has in comparison to FDR is he was alive when FDR was still president. And that's not a joke. He actually was alive. Like, he was a toddler, but he was alive when FDR was still president of the United States. And, again, not to be ageist, I'm just saying. But, so Biden is a moderate Democrat. It's what he's always been. He always will be. But I still voted for him because, one, again, he's a Democrat, but also because I felt like he was the lesser of two evils between him and Trump. And I still stand by that. But going into 2024, if Biden is the nominee, he doesn't really have that many accomplishments to run on. I mean, at least in 2012, Obama had Obamacare as something to run on. I mean, what has Biden really done? And keep in mind, now the House is controlled by Republicans, though by a small majority. And it's basically, like, I think a one-seat majority in the Senate. So, he hasn't really done, the Democrats haven't done much so far. The only thing, and to be fair, Republicans haven't done much either, just a bunch of investigations haven't really resulted in anything. But he did a small infrastructure package and helped get us out of Afghanistan. And that's pretty much it in terms of actual policies. There might be a couple other things he's done, but nothing really big name or wide scale that I think the entire country would be like, yeah, this is worth re-electing Biden for. And don't get me wrong, I saw Biden's 3-minute announcement video, and I thought it was an okay video. But again, the problem is, if it was someone who wasn't Biden, and like had big name recognition, even if they were only like say 15, 20 years younger, I'd be more hyped. Because, and this is something I think some people probably don't want to admit, but I think a lot of people are thinking about. Should we really vote for someone for another 4 years if they can't survive the job? I mean, that, again, going back to FDR again, and I've seen pictures of FDR when he first got elected compared to when he got reelected for his 4th term in 44. And he looked like a shell of his former self. Now, sure, polio didn't help, but still. That is the problem. Being president is a big, I guess, is a big deal. And it can physically affect a lot of presidents when they have to do it, especially for a 2nd term. So, regardless if it's Biden or Trump, I don't know if we can really trust someone to be in this 4-year job if they may not survive the 4 years. But then, on the other hand, if we do pick someone who's younger for either or even both of the parties, that's something I think both parties have to look at. Can we really trust the future of our party to someone who doesn't have much of a future left? And this leads to one last thing I wanted to bring up, though briefly. So, and I think I mentioned this in a previous video. I've talked about it before about term limits. I still stand by the fact that we should have, in my opinion, a 10 term limit in the House, so up to 20 years in the House, a 3-term limit for the Senate, or 18 years in the Senate, and all, I guess, Supreme Court or regional court judges that are nominated by the president and then voted on by the Senate should have a 20-year limit. And sure, we do have term limits for the presidency, but again, despite their ages, both Biden and Trump are technically eligible to be president again because they both only served 1 term. They can still get elected to a 2nd term, and then they'd be term limited. But this leads to an overall bigger problem with Washington, in that it's not necessarily the younger people with new ideas that really become successful. It's people that are wealthier, who have been, in a sense, Washington establishment, or in some cases corporate establishment, because let's face it, corporations do donate a lot of money to politicians, that really are the ones who have a say over how our country is governed. And I feel like a problem with this, and Biden and Trump are a good example of this, now sure, Trump not so much, but it's still true, when you've been in Washington for so long, you become complicit of the way things are. And I feel like part of the reason why a lot of, I guess, both Democrats and Republicans, going back to what I said a minute ago, are putting all their eggs in the Trump versus Biden rematch basket, it's like, it's good for, I guess, entertainment like in the media, because a lot of media are like, oh, it's going to be the rematch of the century. Which man will come out on top, Biden or Trump again? But when you look at a lot of polls, neither Biden nor Trump are over 50% polling right now. But at the same time, if you look at a lot of leaders in both the House and the Senate on both parties, a lot of them aren't that popular. And I feel like this is a problem when we have people that are in Washington so long. Not only do they get complacent with the way things are, but a lot of voters get complacent with the leadership we have. It's like, well, if it's going to come down to between these two people, don't really see much way of change. I'm going to go with the lesser of 2 evils. And I feel like that's a problem, and being a rematch between Biden and Trump is a good example of this. So, yeah, I still think we need term limits on the House, the Senate, and the Supreme Court. But again, I feel like that's just another band-aid to a larger problem, which is the longer you are in Washington, the harder it is to leave. Biden was there for decades as a senator. He left briefly after he left being vice president, and then he came back. Trump, sure, he was a dark horse Republican, but now he can't. But now it's like he grew addicted to the power of being president, and now it's like he wants it again. So I'm just worried about what's going to happen after 2024, regardless of who becomes president, and if they can actually make it through all 4 years. So like I said, those are just my thoughts. Kind of a bit of a ramble with this one, but I felt like it was important at least sharing my thoughts on this for what we might see in the next year and a half. Now again, election's another year and a half away. Anything can happen until then, but if it is going to be Biden and Trump rematch, I'm personally not excited for it, but I'd still vote for Biden again. This doesn't mean that's the thing I'd like to see more than everything else, but just gotta deal with it. Alright, not much else to say on this one. Please like, share, and subscribe, and take care.